Hi, and welcome to another presentation from your Business Tutor, learning your way, anytime, anywhere. You'll remember from our last presentation that when we talked about horizontal integration, we referred to two organisations combining from the same sector of industry. For example, two secondary sector organisations joining together. In this presentation, however, we are going to turn our attention to organisations that combine from different sectors of industry. Put simply, combining with an organisation from its supply chain. So with that point made, let's introduce today's topic, which is vertical growth or integration. So what are we going to learn in today's presentation? Well, first of all, we're going to find out what vertical growth or integration is. And then we're going on to explore the advantages and disadvantages of vertical growth. So what is vertical growth? Vertical growth or integration is when an organisation joins with a business from a different point in the chain of production or from a different sector of industry. Now, as you have probably already worked out, this means there are two types of vertical growth. First, there is forwards vertical integration, which is when a business takes over another from a later stage in the chain of production. For example, if a secondary sector organisation, like a food manufacturer, purchased a tertiary sector organisation, like a supermarket. And second, there is backwards vertical integration, which is when a business purchases one before it in the chain of production. For example, if a secondary sector organisation, like a food processor, purchased a primary sector business, like a farmer. Now that we know what vertical growth is, let's now turn and ask what are the advantages of vertical growth or integration. One of the advantages of forwards vertical integration is that it gives an organisation control over how, where and when their product is sold. For example, if a food manufacturer purchased a supermarket, it could ensure the products it makes were placed in the most popular aisles in the supermarket, at eye line where customers were more likely to see them and buy them. This, of course, would help to increase sales, especially if competitors' products were removed from the supermarket or placed in unpopular aisles. Forwards vertical integration also benefits an organisation as it brings a business closer to their final customer. This is useful as this will make it easier to get feedback on products and services, which can then be used to improve them. For example, it would be far easier for a supermarket to obtain research from customers they see every day than it would be for a food manufacturer who doesn't sell directly to retail customers. A final benefit of forwards vertical integration, which would also apply to backwards vertical growth, is that supply chain costs can be reduced. When organisations sell and buy from each other, they will usually have teams of staff to deal with all the administration that goes along with that. However, if two organisations join vertically, these costs can be reduced or eliminated. But more than that, because they are now joined, when they pass materials or products along the supply chain, they will do so at cost price. This is important because previously they would have passed them on at a profit. For example, a food manufacturer may have previously sold their product to a supermarket at £1 so that they made a 20p profit per item. However, now that they own the supermarket, they can pass on their product at 80p to the supermarket. This means the supermarket now has more control over the price they charge customers. They could continue to sell the product in store at £1.50, or alternatively, they could cut the price to gain customers and market share. In short, vertical growth gives a business more control over its supply chain costs, which therefore gives it more scope to alter its selling price to maximise sales and profits. Of course, and as we have just previously mentioned, backwards vertical growth also gives an organisation greater control over its supply chain costs, as the teams from each business involved in buying and selling to each other can now be amalgamated, which saves money, as duplicate jobs can be eliminated. However, the supply chain savings don't end there, as the purchasing business now has greater control over the price they pay for supplies. This point is very important because in some sectors such as farming, bad weather can have a massive effect on how big a harvest is. As such, if there is a poor harvest, food manufacturers may be forced to pay a very high price to obtain produce from farmers, which would significantly increase their costs. However, if the food manufacturer purchased the farmer, they would not be faced with these increased costs. The advantage of this is obvious. If the food manufacturer doesn't encounter a big increase in costs, it will not have to increase its prices to customers. This could be huge, because if competitors do have to increase their prices due to rising supply costs, the food manufacturer should be able to gain market share and sales. The benefits of backwards vertical growth don't end there, however. By taking over a supplier, a business can ensure the quality of the raw materials it receives are of the highest standard. If a business buys its supplier, it can make sure that the materials delivered to it are made to the correct standard and arrive on time. This is a big benefit because if materials are of a good standard, levels of waste should be lower and the final product should be of a better quality. Better yet though, if supplies arrive on time and when required, production will never be halted by late deliveries, and the business will be able to hold lower levels of inventory, which decreases costs. A final advantage of backwards vertical growth is that it ensures a business has a reliable source of supply. As we know, in some industries, for example farming, output can be reduced due to bad weather. In such a situation, some organisations may not be able to obtain supplies as there is not enough to go around. Obviously, this problem would not be encountered by a business that purchases a supplier, as they would have access to their output. Okay, now we've covered the advantages, let's move on and ask what are the disadvantages of vertical growth. As with horizontal integration, vertical integration can also be expensive. Purchasing a business is not cheap, and if done by borrowing money, can result in a lot of debt being incurred that needs to be paid back. Another problem mentioned previously is that vertical integration can result in culture clashes between the two organisations that join together. If this issue is not resolved quickly, it can make the enlarged business really difficult to manage, as staff from both organisations become uncooperative and do not trust each other. Of course, this situation could be exacerbated further if, as a result of the two businesses joining together, that some employees lose their jobs. Put this all together and what you have is a business which is difficult to manage. Add to this that the enlarged business is operating across different sectors, and you can quickly see that an organisation could quickly lose focus. Managers get tied up dealing with problems caused by the vertical integration, rather than using it as a springboard to move the business forward. This is especially the case if the directors find something unexpected in the business they've purchased. For example, if they found the business had been misreporting sales and profits figures, this would take up a lot of management time to sort out. This is a real problem because a business which is not focused on moving forwards will lose ground to competitors. Overall, if the directors of the enlarged business can't get the business to operate in a single, unified way, it will encounter higher costs due to the business operating ineffectively. So what did we learn in this presentation? Well, first of all, we found out what vertical growth or integration is. And after that, we went on to explore the advantages and disadvantages of vertical growth. In a modern business environment, ensuring access to reliable sources of inventory and to a plentiful supply of customers is absolutely vital. It is therefore no wonder that many organisations have used vertical growth. However, to guarantee this growth is successful, and this holds for horizontal integration as well, it has been assumed that the growth used has been achieved within the industry it is already part of. Although this strategy is sensible, it is not always used by organisations. And this is why in the next part of this series we will look at growth by diversification.